From the lowest to the highest, from the furthest to the nearest, from the smallest of the smallest to the greatest of the greatest, yoga is about all of life, everything we do, all of existence. My name's James Bogue. Welcome to the Whole Life Yoga Podcast.
Namaste. Thank you for tuning in. If we were speaking together in person, it's not at all unlikely that I might begin by asking you how you're doing, and if I never met you before, where are you from? When a person asks us, where are you from? Of course, there are many honest, accurate ways to answer that question. And one way is, well, I come from the same place as you. We all come from the same place. We all come from the womb. We are all children of our mothers. We came from that womb. And when we came out of the womb, we were born. And as a creature who was born, we are going to die because we are part of nature. Really, we are nature. We're not separate from it. There's this strange thing that has, I would even say, afflicted humanity, whereby many human beings consider nature as something separate from themselves. And I just think this is wrong. It's inaccurate. Now, if I look at the Oxford English Dictionary, I have here one edition of it, and it says it's the foremost authority, the most comprehensive coverage of current English, very elegantly designed. And if I go to page 1235 of this particular edition and look at the definition of nature, I see it says the phenomena of the physical world collectively, including plants, animals, the landscape, and other features and products of the earth. And then there's this bit that I just cannot stomach. Well, I can, but it's difficult to, as opposed to humans or human creations. No, sorry, that's just not reality. Because nature, etymologically, it's from the root nat, which in Latin languages means to be born. For example, I was born in England. It is my native place. One time I had the good fortune to be in the Pacific Northwest I think it was August, possibly it was already September, and I saw salmon swimming back up to their natal streams. It was a magnificent thing to behold. The natal stream, the place where they were born. Many of us may be familiar with the nativity story, the story of birth. Anything that is born and will die is nature, is part of nature. Human beings are not separate from nature, despite what the dictionary says. I would say that dictionary, which does reflect perhaps common usage, demonstrates how tragically inverted and estranged from the original meaning of this word our common usage of it has become. Now, some years ago, I was giving a talk on yogic mythology in Chicago, which to my mind is a pretty monstrous human creation in terms of it's just this endless grid. I've lived in several continents, many different countries, and I think that is the most extreme environment I've known in terms of the monochromatic dullness of the man-made environment. I was just in continental Europe, in Prague. It's so beautiful. And in Italy, in Cinque Terre, in Liguria, in Milano, even in Milan, it's like, as far as Italy goes, Milan has the reputation for being not a particularly beautiful city. Compared to Chicago, it's jaw-dropping. Now, some might say, hey, what are you talking about, Chicago? We've got these beautiful buildings. I don't care, whatever you have. I'm sure it's got lots of lovely things in it. But the thing that really I found unpleasant was this just endless grid. And when one is walking, the land doesn't nourish. What I've experienced when I walk in the mountains, for example, I walk in a more curved, natural, nuanced environment. Every step brings a type of nourishment to the walking human. Whereas in Chicago, that nourishment was not so vital. A little bit like, the organic carrot that yes, it was grown organically, but it's been shipped for weeks and it's months since it was in the soil. Compare the nutrition that gives you to the one that you just picked from the ground, from the fertile soil. It's a very different type of nourishment. Anyway, I was in Chicago in this grid-like city, and I was invited to give a talk at an arts venue. And the talk was on Mother Divine. And I told a story, a wonderful story of Mother Divine from the Devi Mahatmyam. And during the talk, uh, I was emphasizing some of these similar ideas about how we are nature and how yoga can help us come into greater remembrance and recognition of the real nature of things and our essential nature. Anyway, at the end of the talk, I was chatting to some of the people who'd come, and I talked to a couple of people, and this gentleman comes to me and he says, thanks for the story. I enjoyed the story, but I got a problem because I'm allergic to nature. Now, I'd been talking for like 90 minutes. And when this gentleman said, I'm allergic to nature, I was kind of horror struck because you're allergic to yourself. That doesn't sound like a recipe for a easeful, pleasant, joyful life. Allergic to nature. Wow, allergic to reality, allergic to the essence of who you are. No, that doesn't sound like a good state of affairs at all. And anyway, afterwards, I'm walking back to where I was staying through this grid-like streets of this big city. And I was reminded of a previous situation some years before when I was teaching at the university in Thailand. And it was an oral interpretation of literature course, during which the students had to present one poem, one extract from a drama, and one piece of prose. And they would read or perhaps even enact the piece. And then they would give a presentation about that piece, why they've chosen it, what it's got to say to us. And on one occasion, one of the students read us an extract from The Sorrows of Young Werther from Goethe. And this passage was describing a lush, green, idyllic setting in nature, far from the madding crowd. And at the end of the student's presentation, my Thai colleague asked the students, there are about 16 students in the group, when, and because this passage had really kind of evoked this sense of feeling a deep connection with the beauty and the vitality of the natural world and some green surroundings. And so the teacher asked the class, when was the last time you experienced that type of feeling of connection to nature? And so we go around the group. And these are final year students of an undergraduate course. It's their fourth year at university. And I was kind of horror struck as student after student mentioned some time way in the past, like three or four of them all mentioned this trip they'd taken during their first year, like 3.5 years before, when they'd been to some seaside place. Several others mentioned a holiday they'd been on with their family, when they were children or when they were still at school. And then finally, my Thai colleague turns to me and says, "What about you?" And I said, well, this morning I was actually a bit late coming into work. Um, I missed the bus, and so the bus I did take had me getting to the bus stop outside the university entrance on Payatai Road a little bit later than would have been optimal. Let's say it's about 10 to 8. I'm supposed to be teaching at 8. So instead of strolling blithely down the rather long, wide, and tree-lined avenue that led from the entrance to the Faculty of Arts, I was running. Not quite sprinting, but running quickly. And it's very beautiful. Many of the mature trees, their leaves are falling. And there are some of the older buildings with the beautiful colored tiled roofs. I can see the color of it was quite a clear morning, blue sky. So I'm running along the tree-lined avenue, seeing the beauty of the campus, seeing the beauty of the trees, seeing the color of the sky. And as I'm running quite hard, I feel the vitality within me. I feel my neurology getting enlivened. And I feel so connected to nature. And I said to the students, yeah, we live in a metropolis, but I don't ever feel disconnected from nature because I think really that's what we are. We are born, we will die, we are living beings, we're part of nature. And sure, in the city, we might not have such easy access to the beauty of nature that can really help us feel that deep connection, but nonetheless, we can still feel that connection. And yeah, I don't think there's ever a day goes by when I don't feel it in some way. And then the students knew that I was really into yoga. I also taught yoga and was studying Sanskrit. And one of them asked me, so is that why you do yoga? And I hadn't really thought of it until the student asked that question. But I thought, well, I guess it is. This is not the first time that students have been my amazing teachers. But when the student asked this question, I'm like, yeah, because since I moved to Bangkok, some of the ways that I really liked to feel that strong connection to nature, to remind myself, to remember, to taste that I am life, they were no longer so accessible. Before I taught at the university in Bangkok, I'd taught in a different town in Thailand, further east, and it wasn't as polluted as Bangkok. And I was still playing football and basketball quite regularly. And when I did play those sports, I really felt alive. And I'd grown up playing a lot of sports outside, and moving in an outdoor environment was always a way that I would feel that very strong connection to life and to nature and feel it with a lot of gratitude. So when I moved to Bangkok and I did try playing basketball outside 2 or 3 times, but then I stopped because I would get home and I would just stink of petrol and engine fumes. My clothes would be just, I couldn't get that smell out of the clothes. The next morning, after just like 2 or 3 showers later, I'm still noticing this. And I wouldn't feel very well because the pollution was so thick. So my ways of exercising during a certain period were occasionally I got to play tennis, and I used to go to the university swimming pool. It was kind of in the heart of the campus, away from the roads. And I was doing a lot of yoga asana, a lot of yoga posture practice, generally indoors. Occasionally, if I had the chance to be in a relatively clean air place, I would definitely practice outside. These days, and well, as soon as I was in an environment where it was more conducive to it, whenever possible, I like to do any type of movement or asana practice outdoors. I like to salute the sun face to face. But when the students ask me this, is this why you do yoga? I realize, yes, this is part of why I do yoga, for sure. And I think this is actually part of what yoga is all about. Yoga is a rehabilitation project. It is a remembering. Yoga means to join, to connect. It recognizes it's easy to get disconnected, fragmented, split, torn. When in this world, in this life, we find our ways of acting overly influenced by the accretions of our conditionings. And so yoga is about reminding ourselves of our true nature, our essential nature. Now, the experience that the Chicago city dwelling resident had of feeling separate from or even allergic to nature, I would suggest that the yoga practice offers us a remedy for this sense of separation and distance, this separation and estrangement. Yoga means joining. Now, of course, joining what? When we start to study yoga, hear about yoga, read about yoga, it's unlikely to be that long before we encounter the idea yoga means joining oneself with everything. Yoga means becoming one with the cosmos, one with ultimate reality, joining everything up. Now, depending on your temperament, your mindset, your disposition, your pre-existing beliefs, when we hear or read something like that, it could be exciting and motivating, alluring. It could feel strange, nonsensical, ridiculous. It could feel intimidating. That's too much for me. But regardless of how it feels, it doesn't really matter because yoga starts wherever we are right now. So this whole play, this whole trajectory, this whole business of joining things up, of bringing ourselves together, of getting more connected, we start right here, right now, wherever we are today. And so yoga invites us to join ourselves up a little bit more. What does this mean? It means to integrate all the different parts of ourselves. Our mental, intellectual, emotional, physical, sensory, sensual natures, all of these different components of this miraculous being that we are as an incarnate human who is part of nature. Yoga, from a certain perspective, means wholeness. This is one of the reasons why yoga is associated with wellness and health practices, because it addresses the whole human being. And we'll only be genuinely, fully healthy when we integrate the whole of ourself. It's all well and good to be very healthy financially and intellectually, but if we neglect the body, we're not going to be very healthy. Sooner or later, the body will develop a problem. It requires respect. All these amazing powers that reside within this field of our being, they too demand, they need respect. But if we treat them all with respect, then we can access our deeper nature. And what is that deeper nature? I would suggest that our deeper nature is the capacity for unity, togetherness, oneness. Now we may look at our life, we may look at the world around us and see plenty of evidence to the contrary. We might feel split, torn, fragmented. We might see separation, division all around. But let's just remind ourselves of the nature of this incarnate human experience. Is it not the case that we have an earthy part to ourselves? We have a watery part to ourselves. We have an internal combustion engine and an inner digestive fire. Air is moving through our being, and we exist in space. And we've got a lot of space within this bodily vehicle. Earth, water, fire, air, and space, the building blocks of material existence according to the yogic vision. We have them all within us. Now, if, for example, we take earth and water and we put them together, we scoop up, for example, some seawater with some sand in it, and we take that in a glass, before very long, all of the sand, all of the earthy part will sink to the bottom. But when I stand up, it's not like the earthy part sinks to my feet and I become this watery being, even though apparently, from a certain perspective, I am 60 to 80% water. No, my ongoing day-to-day incarnate existence is the living, breathing, walking proof that I, as a human being, have an extraordinary capacity to unify, to join up, to reconcile and harmonize entities, qualities that ordinarily might seem very difficult to integrate. So I've said this before. When I was a child, one of my friends had a toy called a Transformer. There was a cartoon as well. The theme tune went Transformers, robots in disguise. So the toy, it was a robot, but you could transform it into a car, or you could transform it into a building, or into a boat, for example. But when you transformed the toy from boat to robot, from house to robot, from skyscraper to robot, the toy was not destroyed. Human beings, yogis in disguise, we do have this capacity to actually bring ourselves into a more joined up reality. And the process of that will not destroy us. It will bring forth a beauty, a potential that already resides within us and is our very nature. Yoga doesn't ask us to become anything we are not. It just encourages and invites us to reclaim who we really are. And who we really are is creatures who have the capacity for unity. Unity in the glorious diversity of this nature, this existence of infinite variegation. And yet, we can experience coherence. We can experience this togetherness amidst all of this change. How does yoga allow us to do this? Well, it works with the microcosm of the body, and the body does not lie. Mind, expert deceptor, expert deceiver, but the body does not lie. So once we start to do yoga practice that include embodied practices, we start to understand and recognize how if we want to be whole, we cannot leave parts of ourselves out. Some people, for example, if they start doing a load of yogasana and they're confused about it and think yogasana means stretching, which it doesn't, I'll talk about that in another episode, they might overstretch and find that the joints become lax and they've got a problem. Oh, I neglected the fortification, the making more robust the system because I wanted to make it more open. Yeah, openness is great, but we also need a certain containment. If, for example, we're working with the body and we just want to be able to do one thing, we might find if we just aggressively pursue a particular physical aim, our capacity to do that actually diminishes because that particular thing resides within a bigger scope of physical potential. And if we actually address the bigger scope of our physical reality, we will know a harmony, which is the platform for much more possibility, much more potential. So, how does yoga do this? Human beings, yogis in disguise. Yes, yogis in disguise. It's not that we are already a yogin. A yogin is a person who's established in yoga. But the very continuation of our physical body day to day already demonstrates high level capacity for yoga, for reconciling, integrating, harmonizing things that might seem difficult or even impossible to integrate and harmonize. This is what yoga practice teaches us. How does it teach us it? Well, yoga practice invites us to do whatever we're doing with all parts of ourselves. When we do something with all parts of ourselves, we give ourselves a reference of what it actually feels like when we do something in this holistic, integrated, complete way. A way that invites each action to be its own fulfillment. When we do that, we give ourselves a reference. And then if we stray away from that more unified approach to life and we start to get split and fragmented and partial, then we notice a little bit more. We can come back to, relatively speaking, a more whole, centered, integrated way of being. And so when we practice yoga, what we're really trying to do, one way we can understand it, is remind ourselves of the true nature of things, which is this extraordinary beauty in all this diversity. Within all this variegated wonder, we have the capacity to join ourselves up as an individual, becoming an individual, a person who is no longer subject to division, an indivisible entity, whole, complete. And through that process, we give ourselves more chance to contribute to the beauty of everything that's all around and this glory of nature, of which we are never separate, of which we are always part. Namaste. If you are interested in exploring how the time-proven practical teachings of yoga can help us in so many practical ways to remember who we really are, what we're really made of. If you're interested in story, mythology, these time-proven teachings encoded in the yogic texts, and you'd love to be part of a group exploring those teachings together, please do sign up for my mailing list if you haven't already, and then you'll hear about the online and in-person courses, programs, retreats, during which we explore in this holistic, integrated whole life yoga way.